Welcome into another show of our preseason series, College Fantasy Football Influencers. My next guest is Zach Hall. Many of you all may be familiar with Zach doing some work with Mike Bainbridge last couple of years with Mike's Patreon. And, Zach's kind of taken a step back this year, but he's still heavily involved in college fantasy football, and he still participates in all the college fantasy football best drafts with us. He did so last year and did so again. He was in all four this year. You can find Zach on Twitter at CFF Champs. Zach's not one that I've done a show with before in the past, so it was really exciting to get a chance to do a one-on-one with him. And so we've corresponded back and forth over the DM threads in Discord and in Twitter over the last couple of years, but it was nice to finally get a chance to catch up with Zach, and I did that. Found him in the flatlands of Nebraska, and I really enjoyed this one. And wait till you see his response when I asked him to pick up that guitar behind him and give us a song. Can't wait for you guys to see this one. It was fun. Let's get right to it. We're welcoming Zach Hall. Zach, you can find Zach on Twitter actually at CFF Champs. A lot of you guys probably are familiar with Zach's work. I know he did a lot of stuff with Mike Bainbridge over the last year or two. And so my guess is, Zach, a lot of people are familiar with your work. I just don't know if they're familiar with the face. So it's nice to finally put the face with the name, man. So welcome in. Glad to have you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun. These drafts have been so much fun. And like you said, I don't know if anybody's ever really seen me. So this is kind of the first time probably that anybody will see my face.
Well, I'm pulling all of you guys out of the woodwork. We're no strangers. We're strangers no more, man. So look, Thanks for coming in. We're going to keep this very lighthearted. It's a round robin. I'm hosting all of you guys in. It's really a chance to talk college fantasy football and a chance for really the industry to the community to just try to get to know the personalities behind some of these industry folks. You know, when we put the draft results up in the preseason fantasy draft guide, whenever we put them up there on the site, they always see our names up there at the top of the page, but it's nice to put a face with the name and know and understand a little bit the personalities behind the name. So thanks for coming in, man. We're going to have some fun with this. And first of all, let me just thank you. You are and have been a part of all four drafts this year. You were part of all the drafts last year. I know you love college fantasy football. You love participating in these. And so as the season gets closer, you understand there's a lot of work that we have to do. So we close out these drafts amongst our friends and industry guys a little early before the month of August gets here. But I want to thank you for kind of participating in that. And that's where we're going to go. So, my first question for you is just sort of your biggest takeaways of the drafts that we've done throughout the spring and summer. It trends in regards to maybe a player, in regards to maybe the way that certain positions are going off the board. What's your biggest takeaways for all the drafts that you've participated in this year?
Yeah. One thing I'll say, these drafts, I love them because I start out doing my rankings, but it always helps me to see where you guys, everybody in these drafts values guys, because there's so many players that we have to look at, that we have to do research on, systems, coaches, all the changes. And so I always have my initial rankings out there, and then I can kind of see where some guys value other players through these drafts. So it's always a huge help and giving me maybe some guys I need to take another look at. A couple of guys really for me, Emory Jones, right? So that was one of your big guys down in Florida there. I didn't have him very high at all. And, you're looking at that system and just what he can do in that system with his legs. So that's one of those guys that I think, I probably was a little bit lower on. I think I was initially, I'm high on Letty Brown. I think you are too. Nobody else seems to be that high on Letty Brown. So that's one guy I think starting out, I was probably taking a little earlier than I needed to in some of these drafts. So he's a guy that I kind of found out I can fall back a little bit on, get him possibly in that third round. I think because that first draft, I took him round one, thinking, hey, I got to take this guy. I know Bainbridge is coming up. He might snag him in that second round. I knew you were a little bit high on him too. So, those
Well,
were a
you know
couple
what's
guys.
interesting is that Letty Brown's been a point of conversation quite a bit in that first draft. When you look at all four drafts, I think you might have taken him 12, I think, or
Yeah, I
somewhere
did.
around there.
Yep.
After that, I think he went like 28, 29,
Yep.
27, 26. You know, you took him at what, 24, 25 the last draft. So um, I'm with you. And the reason why I think Emory Jones went so early for me in all the drafts is that I decided to go with a different strategy this year because I felt that the running backs were so deep that most of the leagues I'm playing in are two quarterback leagues. And I wanted to lock up two quarterbacks
Yeah.
early. And I felt for me at the time that Emory Jones, which I had overall at 15, was sort of my hard stop. If I didn't get him, then I probably wasn't coming back to quarterback for quite some time. I'll say that since the Miles Brennan news broke, that I would say Max Johnson now was more of my hard line at 16. But to your point, I think Mike and I both have Letty Brown ranked 5, and he's going off the board well into the second round, even early third in some drafts that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I love that value you can get with Letty there. A couple things too. You just mentioned the quarterback early. I think you almost have to, especially in these drafts. You can get some value late, but there's just I don't know if it compares. And I think you can, like you said, wait on somebody, even receiver. I know some guys are taking receiver early, but it just felt like as we got through these, you almost have to get one of those top QBs in the first 2 rounds at least.
Yep.
This year, anyways, it felt like.
Yeah, I'm with you. The quarterback position weighs so heavily, particularly in a best ball two quarterback league, that I think in the final draft, which, it might have been my least favorite of the four that I picked. And I had the second pick and went Brees Hall, but I got Emory Jones, I think, as my quarterback too. And I came back 2 rounds later, and I think I was still able to get Carson Strong. So even if Emory Jones doesn't work out as well as I had hoped, I'm still falling back with another quarterback that I think is pretty strong. But to your point, it was a strategy that I changed this year because I just feel that the running back depth, particularly, man, you've got some solid guys down there ranked probably in the 30s and 40s that are still quality starters. And I just felt the depth at running back was there that I needed to go up and fill with some of those premium quarterbacks. I mean, it seemed like you did the same, as well in some of your drafts.
Yeah, I did. I tried to, there's a lot of running backs I like that you can get later. One thing I noticed too that I felt like I never really wanted to go receiver early. And not that I didn't like, I love those top tier guys. I think there's a lot of value, but especially in the best ball, it just felt like there's there's so much variance on these guys week to week, and it's the hardest position really to project, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas you could have a guy go off this week, fall down the next week, and so that was one where I just tried. I felt like I could wait on receiver a little bit too, and try and get some of those guys that have a really high ceiling versus certain teams, but might not be consistent with
Yeah,
scoring.
that's a good point because I'm not a big fan. Like I love going receiver early if I can get the stud receiver, but you and I did not have. I know that I only had one top 7 pick, and that was in the fourth draft. I don't think you've drafted very high in any of these leagues
So
as well. And I took Brees Hall with the second pick in the last draft that we had. You had the first overall pick, right? So you went Malik Willis. Quite frankly, if I was drafting in probably 3, 4, 5, or 6 spot, and David Bell was available, I probably would have taken him, particularly maybe at 4 or 5. I just never landed in the spot. And once when I knew I wasn't getting David Bell, I was off on receivers until later.
yeah,
I thought until whenever I felt the value was there.
yeah.
Let me ask you this: what players on all the rosters that all considering all your rosters this year? I don't know how many leagues you're playing in, but considering what you have on your roster, what player do you have the most stock in, or what player do you need to have the biggest year for you because you're so heavily invested in them?
Probably Letty Brown. He's a guy that I'm trying to get in most. I feel pretty confident that he's gonna be, he's gonna get his carries, so I'm not too worried about it. Another guy I've really tried to get in quite a few drafts is Preston Hutchinson. And he's a guy that I feel like you can get really closer to that 6th, 7th round right now. And
Yes.
you can get him as a QB too. I feel really good about that. I just know the sample size you have of him. He put up big numbers last year, but it was just small. You're also MAC. I don't have a schedule in front of me, but knowing that a lot of those MAC guys start out a little bit slow,
Yeah.
and they might come on in conference. But he's a guy that I found I really like that value. So if he turns out to not put up numbers like he did last year, that could put a dent in my strategy a little bit. But those are two guys that I'm probably drafting a lot. And then another guy that I've tried to get is Cam Porter from Northwestern, the running back there. I think he could have a big year. And I've taken him. I try and get him around if I can get him at that running back 3 spot on my roster. I love that. But he's a guy that if he doesn't come around, I've got a lot of shares of him. So that
Well, here's a fun one then. And this could be whether or not just other guys that are heavily invested in other players, whether you're going back and forth and trying to convince Mike that he's wrong about a player and you're right. Who would be a fun player to see flop this year? We're not talking about injury, right? We don't want to wish injury on anyone, but what would be a player that would be fun to see flop based on some of the conversations that you've had?
Bijan Robinson, for sure. I just, I love the conversation. I didn't chime in really at all in our DMs there with that whole conversation, but knowing where Kyle is at with him, and it seems like everybody else is probably closer to, where he's a top 4 running back, top 3 running back. But if he flops, I feel like it's going to be comical to see what is said at the end of the year. So
you're looking forward to the shit show if Bijan Robinson flops. I love it.
Yeah. And
so here's a good one. How many fantasy leagues do you play in? If you had to guess, do you know the exact number or approximate?
I don't. I actually don't try and play a lot. I do these best balls. I have a home league that I do and a dynasty league, and then I might do 1 or 2 more. I really, I don't want to wear myself out trying to set lineups every week and doing that. So I try and keep it to a minimum and kind of have my guys and not have 10, 20 different teams where it's, you're hoping your guy does good for one team, but you're playing.
Well, that's the argument for me and why I'm such a big proponent of the best ball formats that don't require any in-league or in-season management. When you start overextending yourself in the in-season management portion, you do 2 things. 1, you wear yourself out, and 2, you wind up pulling and cheering against and for the same guys at some point during the season. So I'm with you, man. I really love the best ball format that we have set up. I like sort of the draft set and forget. It makes it interesting. It makes it fun. But at the same time, I like to have some in-season stuff going on as well and sort of work the traditional college fantasy football leagues. But I'm with you. I'm not someone that overextends myself with a bunch of league during a bunch of in-season league management. And I think that's really what kind of gets you. How many of those leagues are you going to win this year, man?
Oh man. Well, my dynasty team's not looking real good. I'm in rebuild mode there. My home league, I think, I'm always towards the top, but everybody guns for me there. So
you're the guy that everybody shoots for in your in-house league?
I feel like, I got that target on my back. So I feel like they try and take me down.
Welcome to the club, buddy.
If they beat me, in a week, I could be at the top of the standings and one guy beats me and it's like they won the championship. But no, I love it.
My guys do that to me too, and they want to beat me, and I just tell them, "Well, you used my rankings to beat me, so I still win."
That's what I've been saying the last few years, but it's fun.
Hey, here's a question. We'll kind of get to the fun ones now. Are you a beer or a cocktail guy?
Beer.
What do you drink? What'd you go to?
It depends. There's vanilla bean beer I like. It's a local brewery here that I drink a lot of that, and then we got another local.
And where are you from? Let everybody know where you're at.
Yeah, so I'm in Nebraska. I'm actually out in Sydney, Nebraska, which is in the middle of nowhere. If you come out here, there's nothing. You just see nothing. It's you look out, flat land. There's nothing. Small town. But out in western Nebraska, I'm actually close. I'm just 10 miles north of Colorado, so
gotcha.
That is where I'm located. But yeah,
Nebraska fan.
Yeah, I am. I'm a big Nebraska fan. Grew up a Nebraska fan. It's hard to not be a Nebraska fan when you grow up in Nebraska. It's almost expected, I think. So
probably odd to hear that a guy from New Orleans, Louisiana, is a Nebraska fan as well, right?
It is odd, yeah.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. So here's and we may get into that a little bit later. Here's another question: do you curse at all? Do you swear?
Probably not a lot, but
because I'm gonna ask you for your go-to word because I don't really give a 2 shits on whether or not we, this is going out. I just wanted to be fun, so I was gonna say, do you have a go-to?
I'll say shit.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very common and boring, Zach. Very common and boring. I think
It is
everybody
boring.
says that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go, man. So look, here's the thing. Here's the question. We're gonna get a little fun now.
Okay.
A lot of these drafts we talk a lot of shit, a lot of smack in these threads, right? What are some things that guys do in any fantasy drafts that you participate in that just drive you batshit crazy? Like you can't stand and understand why somebody does something like this when they're drafting, whether they take their time, but what is there anything that just irks you during a draft when somebody does something?
Well, I mean, the big one, and this is probably common. So these slow drafts, when somebody takes forever, I mean, you're on the clock you have a 4-hour clock and you stretch it out to 3 hours and 50 minutes. It's like, come on, you can't find 5 minutes. And I think the next part of that is these slow drafts too. You might have a day between your picks, and it's like, are guys doing any research at all? Do they not know when their pick is coming up? Here's the few guys I want, or I'm looking at it, or like it seems like there's guys that just wait until their pick to even look at what they need, who's out there. So that's probably one of the big ones that drives me crazy.
I think that one's got me crazy too. I think, even if I'm 24 picks away, I probably have 15 guys in my queue at all time, right? And so it's like you're on the clock. You don't have one guy in your queue ready to go. It's almost like they wait till they're on the clock and then they go through their cheat sheet, scratch everybody off, and then reevaluate their drafts. Yeah, that's a good one. Here you go. I don't really use the term college fantasy football expert. It gets thrown around amongst Twitter a lot. I like to say more of like industry influencers. I'm asking everyone to have fun with this one. On a scale of 1 to 10 amongst the group, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 as being a college fantasy football expert or industry influencer.
That's a tough question. This is, so I said it before, I respect a lot of these guys, and I think I take a lot. 1 through 10, I feel like I'm probably on the low end. I just think there's a lot of guys that have a lot of knowledge. I'd put myself at a 4.
You put yourself, that's interesting you say that. You put yourself at a 4, but yet I interviewed John Lobb, and when John Lobb and I did a show, he said he's a modest guy and he'd give himself an 8. That was absolutely gold, man. I wasn't when he said I'm modest, and then he threw out the 8 number. I thought it was great. I can't wait for you guys to see this stuff. Here you go. Here's a fun question for you. You're in all 4 leagues, and I think we've kind of have we already have an agreement that we're going to put together some side pot, which I need to organize, and we're going to do a point system based on all 4 leagues to see who kind of maybe is the best drafter, performs well out of all 4 leagues combined. So we're going to come up with some point system. Whether or not you win it may be inconsequential, but who's the one guy that you just want to beat more than anything? You just want to, it doesn't matter, Zach, if you win the league, but you just want to be ahead of this one guy. Who is it?
Yeah. I think Bainbridge.
I
know Bainbridge probably the best out of all these guys. So, and I just have a lot of respect for him. So I feel like if I can beat him, then I probably had a pretty good year. So, that's who I'd go with.
Okay. Well, okay. Fair enough. So, here's another question too. And maybe Bainbridge for this one, we'll find out. But, when you think about our drafts and all of the smack talk and all the crap that gets posted on there, I mean, you've got to have some pretty thick skin to be up in that thread at times, right?
Yeah.
But who's the one guy that just annoys you more than anything in that thread or in the group with what they say or what they post?
Oh man.
Don't hold back. This is fun.
I don't want anybody to not like me here.
No, that's not going to happen. They need to be hit with a dose of reality. Make it fun though. Make it fun. I don't care if you're making a joke.
I like this guy. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he does good work, but Nick just talks way too much about Cole Turner. He takes the tight end way too early, and it feels like it's just a gimmick. And so probably that's just the one thing. It's like, man, in every draft it just keeps going, and it's funny, but it's
played out is what you're saying. He's played it out. It annoys the hell out of you.
Yeah. Until he actually takes Cole Turner in like the 2nd round, it's I don't know.
Well, okay. So here's a question for you. This is a fun one, and maybe you don't know the group as well as some of us do, but this is your chance to do that, right? You're going to learn some of the personalities when you see the show. Zach, if you know you get a night out with the guys, right, and you can take from what you know about us on the draft thread and whatnot, you can only take 3 guys out with you. Who are you taking? Where are you going? What are you going to do?
Oh man.
Come on, have some fun.
I'm gonna take Kyle just because he's got good one-liners. He seems like he'd be fun. He'd keep it entertaining.
Yep.
I'd probably take Proton. He just seems like he's the guy that you're gonna wind up doing something that you haven't done before probably, and it's gonna be fun. Man, who else would I take? I would probably go with, I think Kay. He seems like he can take shots and he can send them out. So he seems like he would be pretty fun to
I
go
think
out
that's
with.
essential for this group. You've got to be able to take the punches, and you've got to be able to dish them at times. You've got to be able to take them right. Do you think Bainbridge is going to have his feelings hurt that you didn't include him on that list?
He might. I don't know.
Do you want to take? Do you want to pick up one of those guitars behind you and kind of sing him a nice little melody?
No, I don't want to do that.
That would be golden. I would love for you to play the guitar. Do you play the guitar?
I cannot sing, but I do. I play guitar a little bit, but not probably well enough to play for an audience.
Maybe
here.
Next year when we're doing these shows, Zach, we can get you to sing a melody to Mike Bainbridge with the guitar. Can I get you to agree to that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I might need to have a couple drinks in me before I do that.
There you go. That's what we need to do. We'll have drinks next time. We'll play something to Mike. We'll sing him a lullaby or something, or maybe we'll do that to Lob. Lob goes to bed early. Maybe we'll play him a lullaby on the guitar. Right? Sounds good to me. We'll do that. Hey, look, Zach, I can't thank you enough for coming in and sort of participating in all these drafts this year. It's always fun having you in. You're always one of the guys that are right on the spot with the pick. I love your analysis. I know I communicate and talk to Mike about you a lot too. And so a lot of that you do sometimes and help out with Mike and help out with us. Certainly appreciate you. It's always fun to have you in on the doing these drafts with us. You could follow Zach on Twitter at CFF Champs. He's lonely in the middle of Nebraska heartland, so find him. He'd love some more company. But Zach, no, thanks for coming in, man. It's been really fun, lighthearted. Always glad to have you in. I know the season's about to get here. Things are about to get ramped up, so it gets a little tough to stay in touch with most of you guys throughout the season. And this was just a way to sort of say, hey, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for participating, and let's get the community behind you guys and kind of put the faces with the names and meet some of the personalities that are in our drafts every year. So thanks for joining me, man. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, just thanks. This has been fun. I'm glad you're doing this. So thanks for inviting me and keeping me on these drafts. I have a lot of fun. So
sounds good, man. Well, look, don't be a stranger. We'll be talking soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
You got it, man. See ya.
Yeah.